This is the video of why, in spite of how many Christians are deconverting from Christianity, leaving, abandoning the faith, I cannot do so. I got two big reasons. First, I'm going to let you watch the damn video. I'm going to go brush my damn teeth, and then I'm going to talk and give my reasons, because I've already seen this video.
This is going to be difficult.
Has she got Jules Scott's arms?
Okay. So, if you're new here, my name's Rachel. This is my channel, Wildwood Vagabond, and I have had this channel for almost 2 years. And when I started out this channel a couple years ago, I was still identifying as a Christian. I wasn't, at that time I had already kind of in my heart started the whole deconversion process, but I wasn't fully aware of it. A little backstory, I was one of those Christians who was charismatic, into it with your whole heart. I mean, eat, sleep, and drink Jesus. Went to all the revivals and the conferences. I was a minister. I was in ministry in Finland. And I was one of those who woke up at 4:30 in the morning and I would pray for 2 hours, an hour to 2 hours before I would go to work and work a full day. And but yeah, so I was one of those, and I did it wholeheartedly and from my whole heart. And when I did ministry, I just want to say that when I did that, I genuinely did it from my whole heart. That is what I believed at that time, and I was just being a vessel at that time. And so I just don't want anybody that may know me from back then to see that and think that, maybe that wasn't genuine, because it definitely was. I've grown a lot and I'm different and I have evolved. I feel like I've evolved out of Christianity, if that makes sense. Christianity served a great purpose in my life. Some of you know that I have a really broken background. We're talking drug addiction, self-harm, and a lot of trauma, which had even led up to the drug addiction, and all that was the cause of all of that stuff. It just got so bad, and to the point that I was homeless, living on the streets with my daughter, had lost my son. Absolutely hit rock bottom. That's where my Christian story begins. I mean, I grew up in a family that went to church, but we weren't wholeheartedly into it. My grandmother worked in a nursery and I went with her, and that was basically the extent of it. But when this was I really was converted into Christianity and went head first when I was 30. I don't know how old it was. It was in 2007. So anyways, I have my notes here and I'm just going to go through because I feel like this is going to be difficult. This might be disappointing to some people, and I just want to say beforehand, I'm sorry that this is disappointing to you, but this is my life. Just I ask you to respect me on my journey. I respect you on your journey. In this video will in no way bash Christianity or Christians, because at the end of the day, I feel like we're all just trying to find our way. So I'll respect your opinions and you respect mine. We don't have to agree that either are correct. I hit rock bottom. A Christian family helped me and my daughter, and that's basically where it all started. And I was so desperate for change in my life that I literally gave everything that I had and put it into serving God, and I turned completely around. And so many miracles were happening in my life. I mean, crazy stuff. I was physically healed in my body, emotionally, this deep healing was taking place, and I was just growing so quickly that I mentally couldn't even keep up with it. And it was just huge transformation, and it was happening so rapidly. And so I just was man, I thought that I just needed to give my, my whole life to God. I went from being codependent on drugs to codependent on God. And that was just kind of a natural, switch, I guess, back then. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but looking back now, I know, like, that's definitely what I was doing, because back then I always searched for something external to bring me peace and happiness and, sense of safety internally. I have since evolved from that to know that all that we could ever need is on the inside of us. We are the co-creators of our own reality, and we don't need something external to give us the power, to give us the will to do right. We can do that all on our own. I ended up getting involved really deeply into this Christian church that turned out to be more like a Christian cult. The leader was very controlling. Stuff was just like drilled in our heads just over and over and over and over and over. And, it all made sense back then. Like, he had scriptures for everything made sense. Like, it just was like, yes, like, I take your word for it. I trust you. He was a man of God. Like, I believed everything that he was saying, and he could prove it all with scripture, and it all made sense to me. And I was like, okay, yeah. But then thankfully, like, my time in Finland, when I was in Finland, I was in ministry there. With my ex-husband, he was Finnish, we had prayer and worship meetings twice a week. And a lot of really cool things happened in those meetings. I stepped back from ministry because, like, I was preaching a lot about love and God's grace and all of the stuff during that time. But my home life was like something completely different. Like, it was just so much striving and just so, like, it was just so toxic at home. And I mean, looking back, I was a huge problem and a huge culprit in that. But anyways, it takes two to tango. But there was just stuff that was going on behind the scenes that I was like, I can't sit here and preach to these people about love and grace and all of this stuff when I can't even see it in my own household. So then I was like, okay, I don't want to be in ministry until, like, I can sort all this stuff out. Being in Finland really gave me time away from our home church, so that when I did come back, I had a new perspective. I kind of started to see things in a different light, and I had started to wonder, like, why my preacher was all the time, like, preaching the same topic, and it was just starting to be, like, drilled into my head. And anytime that I would, like, think differently or experience something differently, I would go to talk to him, and he would be like, he would explain it in this way, and it was just like, oh, like, his way, you're like, oh, okay, yes, you are correct. What was I thinking? And I would leave, and I would just be like, what was I thinking? And then, like, 5 minutes later, I'd be like, something would click, and I would be like, wait, no, I know what I was saying. I know that was right. So those type of situations started to happen a lot. Ended up getting kicked out of that church for asking, I don't know, just for thinking on my own, I guess. And I've never been one to, like, fully, I don't conform well. I kind of
amen, neither do I.
And do outside the box. So,
goddamn conformity.
Apparently I was rebellious, and could be true. But yeah, so he became, like, really, really controlling, and when I wouldn't submit any longer to that, like, I got kicked out. It was really sad because we had been a part of that church for 7 years, and they shunned us, like, literally shunned us. Like, other members of that congregation were no longer allowed to talk to us, and they just shut us out as if we never existed, and then posted stuff about pray for this family on social media because we were
she's got long arms.
So that kind of, like, it actually came at a good time because I had already started to question a lot of things, which is what eventually got me kicked out of the church. I realized that not every church in Christianity is this extreme. I realized that. But that kind of gave me a way to kind of start thinking on my own. I ended up eventually just stopped going to church altogether. Got divorced from my ex-husband because, I mean, I was growing out of that, like, Christianity. I know Christians would sit here and say, oh, you were just backsliding. You allowed the devil to come in and deceive you. But that's like so much further than the truth. It's so wrong. I started to think about, one day it came to me about heaven and hell, about like how it's like free will, like a free will if we want to follow God or not, give Him our life, believe in Him. You either do God's will, or you go to hell and you burn for eternity and you're tormented and all the other horror stories that they tell you about burning and being tortured and just for all of eternity. That is not free will, because that is given to us like, well, it's your choice. It's free will. You can choose to, follow God, or if you don't, then you will go to hell. To me, that is not free choice. That is a freaking ultimatum. If you tell me that I'm going to go, I have the choice, like I can either live, or I can die, or I could live like happily, or I could, be tormented for the rest of my life, or following my own wishes and my desires for all of eternity. I mean, to me, there's no choice in that. Like, what are you going to choose? Heaven or hell? Like, duh. That just encouraged me to, like, look into the whole topic of heaven and hell, right and wrong, like, differently. Like, who's to say what's right and what's wrong based on different cultures? And so what happened when I started to let go of my fears based on, like, if I start thinking outside the box, if I actually allow myself to say, okay, I don't believe in heaven or hell anymore. Once I would, like, get over that threshold of these little fears that I had, of these things, like, drilled in my head, I noticed this, like, whole new level of freedom that I would achieve, and this sense of, like, greater peace that would come on the inside of me. Because if I didn't have those fearful things holding me back, like, or, like, oh, I'm going to go to hell if I believe in God, or I'm a bad person, I'm so bad that I'm not worthy of God's love, but He loves us anyway. He's so holy and He's so righteous that we can't even stand in His presence unless we go through the blood of Jesus. But at the same time, I'm, like, trying to love myself and trust myself and, like, accept all parts of me, but I can't even, like, follow my own desires, because, like, my desires, anything outside of God's will, is considered to be selfish or even sinful. And so it was just like, what the hell is the point even, like, why did God create me so that I could worship Him? Like, He's supposed to be this humble, loving, like, so giving, gracious, generous God, but you created us just based on the fact that, so, like, you're hoping that I choose to have a relationship and worship you and you alone and live only by your will. Then why the hell did you give me desires of my own in the first place? And don't throw that, free choice card, because free will, because that's BS. And I realized too, like, yep.
And another thing that just fucking gets me. God is hoping you'll get saved. That's a crock of shit. God knows everything that's ever gonna fucking happen. God knows whether you're gonna get saved or not. So how in the fuck is it possible for God to hope, or God to try His best, as I heard Pastor David Wilkerson of Times Square Church, the late David Wilkerson, say, God has tried His best. God has tried His best, and you still didn't get saved. Look, God is fucking all powerful. If God is trying His best, if God is trying His best to get you saved, and you're not getting saved, He's not fucking trying His best. If He is hoping you'll get saved, and you don't get saved, something's fucked up. The only way this can be possible is God has set certain parameters, and He wishes you would get saved within these parameters. And within these parameters, He's trying His best within the parameters to get you saved, but knowing damn well you're not going to get saved, because something's fucked up.
Yeah, it's about relationship, but how much of a relationship can you have when you're kind of forced into it? Like, You know, you can choose a relationship with me, or you can suffer for eternal damnation. I mean, to me, that's not a freaking relationship. Again.
Amen.
I also started to think about how, like, all the other religions, like even Buddhism, religions that were here way before Christianity, like how can they all be wrong? Like, if Christianity has the whole truth, how can they all be wrong and they're all going to hell? But only the Christians are right.
I got an answer to you for that. This is one of the reasons I cannot deconvert. The first was because what I experienced from Jesus. I just can't abandon that totally. Now I'm gonna do as little as I can. I'm not gonna go. I asked Jesus for 3 answers to my prayers. Until God answers my fucking prayers, fuck him. I'm just gonna do just enough. Keep on believing what I got from him that afternoon in jail in 2014 when I was finally saved. But I'm not gonna give up. I will not give up my dreams. I want to be a rapper. I want to be a good-looking guy. And goddamn, being great in heaven. Just let me be great down here and be the least in the kingdom of heaven. Cause Jesus, are you really real? But dear girl, what's your fucking name? Wildwood Vagabond. Here's a reason I can never deconvert from Christianity. No scientist or atheist can explain what's going on here. Christianity is the only religion that has killed people for mocking its God, for refusing to convert to Christianity. No one in Hinduism. Have you ever heard of somebody, the Hindu monks, try to get a person to convert to Hinduism, and the person steadfastly refused to become a Hindu, and he was killed mysteriously within 3 days? Have you ever heard one such testimony? Have you ever heard multiple testimonies? Well, Christianity's got those multiple testimonies. Have you ever heard of a story about Mormon missionaries trying so hard to get this person to convert to Mormonism, and the person steadfastly refused, and the person said, I do not want goddamn thing to do with Mormonism. You take your Mormonism and shove it up your ass. Have you ever heard of a case like this? And the person who said that to the Mormon missionaries died mysteriously. And the autopsy could not find no cause of death. I bet you $1 million you'll not find one such fucking story. Have you ever heard of a story of Islam trying to get a person to convert, and the person said, Allah be damned, and Muhammad is a goddamn liar? Have you ever heard of someone doing that after Islamic clerics tried to get the person to convert to Islam, and the person who blasphemed Muhammad and Allah died the next day? Have you? You cannot find one such story. But there are many stories, eyewitness accounts of people who blasphemed the Holy Ghost or who were urged to get saved. The preacher begged them to get saved. J. Harold Smith begged people to get saved, and they did not get saved. And one was struck by lightning in a clear day, and another died of a heart attack at 29 years old, where I'm one is none. And listen to this story. And these stories are Aaron Ra and Dr. James Tabor, Sam Harris, Matt Dillahunty. These stories, they have no answer for these stories. So they try to say these stories didn't happen, because they know if these stories are true, and these atheists are in deep shit. They're jumping out of the frying pan into the fire when they stop believing in Jesus, just like this girl has done. So this is why I cannot leave Christianity. The second reason I cannot leave Christianity.
This professor started his motor according to a testimony of a lady across the street, and he had gone just about 20 feet mowing his lawn when he grabbed himself and screamed and fell over on the ground dead. 29 years old.
Listen.
In perfect health. And in a minute after he was cursing God, he was dead and in hell.
The story you're about to hear. J. Harold Smith was the preacher. He was preaching in a stadium. And this is his personal story right here. So listen. And don't you goddamn asses dare say these stories never happened. He's telling you what happened from his first person account.
I was holding a revival meeting in Louisiana in one of the big rodeos. We came to the last night of the revival meeting, and I was preaching the sermon that I'm preaching tonight. And I gave an invitation all during the meeting, all during that service. On my right, in the extreme corner of that rodeo, were three businessmen of that city. They laughed. They made fun. They lit their cigarettes. They cursed. They cursed me. They cursed the ushers. They cursed the sponsors of that revival meeting. And when about 400 people got up out of their seats and began to walk down to give their hearts to Christ, they began to make all sorts of canny remarks and filthy remarks about those that were coming to the altar. I met them as they came down out of the rodeo, and I said, I do not know who you gentlemen are, but all three of you have blasphemed against God's Spirit, and you've stepped over God's deadline. One of them said, is that right? I didn't say another word. They left. The next morning at 8 o'clock, one of those businessmen put his key in his door to unlock his business. He dropped dead in the street before he could open the door. At 11:30 that day, the second businessman started to cross the street in that little city and dropped dead in the middle of the street with a heart attack. At 5:30 that afternoon, the third one was sitting in his office with his secretary, and he said to her, before the sun goes down, I'll be in hell. She said, ask God to forgive you. And he said, it's too late, and pitched out in his chair, a corpse. I had left on Monday morning to go to another revival.
Now, if Christianity is not true, how did that man know he was about to die and go to hell when the night before he did not believe, he believed Christianity was a lie, and he was mocking and making fun of Christianity? You will not find one such story like this that died because a person mocked Islam, Mormonism, Hinduism. And if you can't, I'll pay you $1 million. Because you can't. You stupid fuckers. So you better be careful before you abandon Christianity. Or else, you might regret it when you die. Stupid fucker.